Yeah, look, just a quick video. A lot happening in the succession space at the moment. I'm just on the way out to catch up with the family that have been working through the process for a number of years, and they started early, worked through a transition, and look, it's probably taken 5 or 6 years just really to make sure that everyone's comfortable with what was happening. Everything could get lined up properly, the on-farm children and off-farm children. We're just finalising. There's some off-farm assets that we're looking at an ownership structure for those moving forward. We had some farmland in self-managed superannuation fund that the parents were the only members of. We've actually taken that land out, just to sort of have it where it needs to end up anyway. So we've done that whilst it can all be done without or completed without paying any tax and any stamp duty either. So it's a really positive outcome. It has taken time, and there's been a few moments where there's been a few tough conversations, but to the parents' credit, they've been willing and able to have those tough conversations and explain why decisions or why certain things have happened the way they have. And I think when parents have that ability to do that and they can explain it and they hold their position and it's for the betterment of the overall family, I think that's when there's been a short-term pain for longer-term gain, as they say. So look, I think it's a great area to work in, like working with farming families like this. But there's other situations where they don't quite work out this well, and you have a situation where there's disagreement, there's various, each family or the families within the family group, all of a sudden there's they've all got a lawyer each, and everyone's putting their opinion forward, holding their positions, not willing to give up, taking a real legal position with it. And it's very sad, because once you get to that stage, I think the parents are then flip-flopping and throwing their hands in the air, and they're just disappointed that this is how it's ended up. And it's very unfortunate. It starts getting very costly, and at the end of the day, what are they actually arguing about? Like, I think that's what I sometimes come back to. What are you arguing about? You're going to end up back in the position where you pretty much started. But I think once that legal process starts, it's there's letters and emails getting sent between solicitors, and it just becomes hopeless. But it was allowed to get to that position too, and it should never have been. And I think this is where what we're doing with future farming families and actually helping parents to become those better leaders is what we're aiming to achieve. And in the first example, the family I'm catching up with today, that's what we're trying to replicate. We're trying to replicate where the parents have actually had the skills, had the knowledge, had the experience, had the confidence to actually put a position forward, have family meetings, conduct those family meetings in such a way that they're very productive. They didn't go off tangents. There at one stage, they did actually get an independent chairperson in to assist with the running of the meeting, just so that they did actually keep on the agenda and not go off on different tangents or that was probably, there were a few difficult conversations and areas that had to be solved, and to their credit, they worked through that and got through that, and everyone's now moved on, accepted the decision, and they've kept going, and it's a fantastic outcome. And no one's missed out on anything. So, and that's quite typical in these farming situations. Everyone, if you look at it, everyone's going to do really well. But it was just probably one of the earlier discussions was that the value of the farm. The farm's worth, and related assets, is probably worth 50 million plus. But once everyone understood, and we help, I guess, the parents be able to communicate this, that whoever's really going to operate the farm, be in control of the farm, is really the custodian of the land, meaning that, yep, fair enough, on paper it looks like a very valuable asset, but realistically they're just continuing on what they've been doing. There's a requirement there that they have actually got to fund the parents, for the rest of their life, to make sure the parents are looked after and they're got financial security. The parents don't have to worry about money. There's a requirement there to fund aged care related costs if and when they do come up. So there's certain requirements, and obviously the land just can't get sold or anything like that. So there's part of the family farm succession deed, which is the key document in these situations, is that so realistically that next generation that are continuing to farm, there's don't get me wrong, there's great opportunity there, and and what's been built up over multiple generations is a fantastic opportunity. But the aim is to kick on and continue to grow that farm and continue that legacy that previous generations have created. So so in that situation, look, it's worked out really well, and once we work through that, and the non-farming kids could see that, well, hell, we're going to end up, on paper, where I think in their situation they, they're getting something now, which I think is important, and it's good that they can do that in this situation, but also they're getting something later on as well. Look, that'll amount to, potentially a couple of $1 million each. And although on paper you're saying, well, someone's getting 50 million, someone's only getting a couple of million, there's a fair difference there, but that couple of million that the non-farming kids are getting, that's life-changing for them. That's a considerable amount of money, and once they realise that their brother or sister or that are actually taking on the farm, well, they're just continuing on. They live a pretty good lifestyle, they're set up pretty well, but they've worked hard for that. But realistically, they're not cashing the farm in and putting $50 million in their bank account and going to live happily ever after at the beach or anything like that. So I think once it's all mapped out in the family farm succession deed, and everyone can sort of see, the requirements around actually getting the opportunity to farm, I think, everyone could see what the parents were aiming to achieve. So I think that was a really important aspect. And within the Future Farming Families, we do have a guide that talks about starting with the end in mind, and what that is really just trying to paint a picture of where we're trying to get to, but also show that document, that family farm succession deed, and what it looks like, what it means, what are examples of clauses and requirements that can be put in that deed, so that everyone understands. So in Future Farming Families, we do have an example of a deed, just so that from the parents' perspective, and also the next generation's perspective, they can actually see, once we actually do reach an agreement, what actually happens then, and how it's put into that type of document, and becomes that document that provides that security and certainty for everyone involved. So look, it's as I said before, it's a great space to work in, but what we're really trying to achieve now is really to